Maya Carter had learned to count hope in dollars and minutes. She worked morning shifts at the bakery on Collins Avenue and cleaned offices at night, sleeping in the sliver between. Her brother Eli, thin and bright-eyed at 15, needed valve replacement surgery they could not afford. The first hospital had stabilized him but demanded half the payment before scheduling. When Maya couldn't produce it, they transferred him to a public facility across town, where fluorescent lights hummed like worry. Rent was 2 weeks overdue, the landlord's notes slipping under the door like accusations. The diet the cardiologist outlined for Eli: lean proteins, low sodium, fresh greens, read like a luxury menu to a girl who'd been stretching rice and canned soup. Each day Maya stitched together more shifts, more corners to cut, more numb prayers set into the stale air of the bus. That was when she called Sienna. Sienna Brooks had been Maya's roommate for 1 semester in community college, all glossy hair and quick, liquid laughter. The rumor that had followed Sienna, "She goes places with men," had been true, but Sienna wore the truth like a jeweled cuff, unapologetic. She met Maya at a cafe on Washington. When Maya finished explaining, Sienna exhaled, long and annoyed. "I don't have money to just hand out," Sienna said, tapping a red nail against her glass. "But I can help you make it. Tomorrow night. And you show up, you look like you belong, you do what you're comfortable with, and if you're more adventurous, you'll make more." Maya's back went rigid. "No. I can't." "Then I can't help you." Sienna's shrug was practiced indifference. Life doesn't give gold stars for suffering. Maya walked home under the salt-thick breeze off the water, repeating no like a spell. For 2 days she held the line. Then Eli's breath turned ragged during the night, the monitor stuttering. Nurses hustled. The charge nurse was kind but unsparing. "Without a deposit they won't book the OR." "I'm sorry." By afternoon, the social worker's list of charities felt like a scavenger hunt in a city that had run out of clues. Maya watched Eli sleep, his lashes the same deep curl they'd had when he was a toddler. She had promised their mother, on the last day, in a voice that shook, "I'll take care of him." She had meant it with her entire life. On the bus back to Little Havana, the sun jeweled the bay and made even the shattered look beautiful. Maya took out her phone and texted Sienna. "Okay, tell me where." "First rule, you leave your phone at the door." In Sienna's studio, the rules fell like beads onto a velvet cloth. Neat, glittering, a little unreal. Second rule, don't ask names unless they offer. Third rule, smile like you were born doing it. Sienna was efficient, not cruel. She slid an ivory slip dress over Maya's shoulders and smoothed it with palms that smelled faintly of orange blossom. "All white," she said. "Theme of the night. Gold accents only." She clasped a thin chain around Maya's neck, a small coin resting at her collarbone. "Hair down. Dewy makeup. Not too much perfume." Maya looked at her reflection. The woman in the mirror was her and not. The dress kissed every line and pretended it was worship. Her eyes, wide and uncertain, fought with the gloss on her mouth. "I don't know how to be this," she whispered. "You don't have to be anything." Sienna's smile flashed. "You just have to be there." They took a car to a private dock where the city thinned into water and the water into an unbroken night. Security met them with elegant efficiency. Phones into velvet pouches. Wristbands tight as secrets. They boarded a gleaming boat that smelled of polished teak and money. Maya stood at the rail as downtown Miami receded, the skyline a crown lit with pearls. The island rose out of the dark like a stage. White lanterns, white canopies, white flowers floating in bowls. Girls in silk and satin laughed like bells. Men in linen and watchful ease moved through the party with ownership braided into their posture. Trays of champagne passed by in endless parade. Someone had thought to add gold leaf to the macaroons as if decadence needed punctuation. Maya clung to Sienna, learning the pace. There were glances like auctions. There were jokes that had no punchline, only power. A DJ spun a set that melted sunset into midnight. The bass felt like a heartbeat you could outsource. And yet, there were small mercies. A girl from the Dominican Republic complimented Maya's dress and pressed a spare safety pin into her palm. A server whispered, "Eat. Always eat," and left an extra plate by her elbow. As the hours passed, the room thinned. Pairs peeled off into the constellation of villas ringing the beach. Sienna disappeared on the arm of a man with a ring like a small planet. Maya, untethered, found a low white sofa near the water and tried to breathe like someone who had choices. "Evening," a voice said beside her. She turned. He was tall in a way that rearranged the air, skin the soft mahogany of late summer, shoulders cut by a tailor who understood geometry as love language. His face held two stories at once. The practiced calm of someone used to entrances and the quieter, truer weariness of a man who watched more than he touched. "Hi," Maya said, too soft. He sat not too close and asked what she was drinking. She said water. He smiled. "Good policy." They talked. Not about work, not about money, but about the ocean at night and how it could make a person feel endless or very, very small. About brothers, he had none, and the donut shop on Calle Ocho that was open at 2 a.m. About grief like a riptide, invisible until you were in it. When he stood, eventually he held out a hand. "Walk." Moonlight made the sand into spilled silk. Maya walked, and for the first time in weeks her chest didn't hurt. His villa smelled of citrus and cedar. He ordered food without asking, grilled chicken, fruit, rice, nothing that felt like seduction. "You must be starving," he said, and when the server left, he poured her sparkling water and took the couch. Maya stood at the foot of the enormous bed, feeling foolish in her borrowed beauty. The evening had been impossible and strangely gentle, like a dream that didn't try to sell anything at the end. I can go," she said, voice tight. "You can," he said. "Or you can sleep. I'm taking the couch. Lock the door if it makes you feel better." The words landed with the weight of a promise. She hesitated. He picked up the remote and tuned the TV to a nature documentary narrated in British understatement. Coral reefs building empires millimeter by millimeter. He didn't look at her again. Maya showered and scrubbed the party off, the water a kind of prayer. She lay atop the duvet and held the coin at her throat like an anchor. Fear coiled, then loosened. She slept hard, the first honest sleep in months. Morning gathered quietly at the edges of the room. A tray waited with coffee and a croissant cut into halves. He was dressed already, in slate trousers and a white shirt rolled to the forearms, a day summoned with a button and a tie. "There's a shuttle back to the dock every hour," he said. "I'll walk you." At the door he pressed an envelope into her hand. "Before you say no," he added, a ghost of humor in his eyes, "consider it a loan you don't have to repay. Or a kindness you can pay forward when you can." Her fingers closed around the weight. She wanted to ask his name, but the party had rules and she had pride. "Thank you," she said. He inclined his head, the gesture somehow both regal and shy. "Take care." On the boat back, Maya sat with the envelope in her lap, a tiny universe of paper and ink. Sienna slid beside her, eyes glittering. "Girl, you look rested. If I didn't know better, I'd say you slept." "I did," Maya said. "Lucky," Sienna murmured, not believing. At the hospital, the numbers on the invoice rose like a tide the envelope could not fully stem. The transfer had changed the estimate. The surgeon's window was tightening. "We can schedule once the deposit clears," the administrator said, polite as a locked door. Maya walked back into the Miami glare with her shadow glued to her heels and did the arithmetic. Envelope plus tips plus everything she owned in a world that had never been hers. It wasn't enough. That night she stood over Eli's bed, smoothing the blanket as if the gesture could change oxygen into certainty. He woke and caught her hand. "We're okay?" he asked, because he was the kind of boy who apologized for needing. "We're getting there," she said, and kissed his temple. She was lying. Or maybe she was inventing a future she intended to occupy. 2 days later her phone buzzed. Another event. Private. Good money. Sienna's message was a fuse waiting for a match. Maya stared until the words doubled. Then she typed, with fingers that had stopped shaking, "Send the details." The second party was not an island but an estate carved out of the Everglades, white tents like teeth against the dark. The same theatrics, phones surrendered, the choreography of exclusivity, but sharper. Sienna adjusted Maya's dress, white again, this time structured, a sleeveless column with a slit like a secret, and slid gold cuffs up her forearms. "Chin up," Sienna said. Soft eyes. "No panic." Maya nodded. She had learned how to breathe in a room like this, shallow, quiet, unnoticed. She kept water in her hand. She ate the canapés when the servers set them down, because a girl had told her to always eat. She thought of Eli's face when he slept, unguarded as a summer window. A man with a smile that didn't reach his eyes offered her a drink with a lime slice, winking. She said no. He laughed softly like they were sharing a joke. 10 minutes later, a server presented a flute of something pale and effervescent. "Compliments of a friend," the server said. She held it, wary, then set it down. The man appeared. "Let's talk somewhere quieter," he said, and his hand at her back felt like a decision made for her. The room drifted by, a watercolor of noise, and then the corridor sharpened, and then a door, and then the click of a lock that sounded like metal closing around a wrist. Maya said his name though she'd never learned it. She said wait, and no, and the words fell like birds against glass. There was the sour taste of something on her tongue, and the floor tilted, and the air became a hallway she couldn't find the end of. Later, morning or what approximated it, she woke with gravity crushing her chest. Her dress was wrong. Her body felt borrowed and dented. On the nightstand, water, aspirin, an envelope with bills she didn't want to touch. A note, "You were perfect." The handwriting looped, smug. She stood under the shower until her skin hurt, until the water ran cold and honest. In the mirror, a stranger stared back with Maya's eyes. She dressed slowly. Her hands shook only when she tried to fasten the clasp of the coin necklace. She left the envelope on the table, then went back and took it, because there was a boy who needed a surgeon and the world did not pause for anyone's breaking. At the gate, Sienna found her. "There you are. Everything." "Don't," Maya said, and the word was a blade wrapped in velvet. Sienna recoiled, then recovered, mouth set in a line that pretended to be tough love. In the car, the city surged again. Light, music, a new day that did not care what the night had done. Maya folded inward and took up less space than a girl should have to. The hospital smelled the same as always, antiseptic and exhausted kindness. At the billing desk, numbers overlapped until they stopped meaning anything. Maya slid both envelopes under the glass. The administrator verified, nodded, clicked. "We can schedule for Friday," she said. "You've met the deposit." Maya's knees loosened. She signed forms until her signature thinned to a line. The surgeon stopped by Eli's bed, his hands gentle, his voice measured. "We're going to take good care of him," he said, and for once the word "we" felt real. She should have felt relief unspool through her. Instead, the world had turned to gauze. The nightmare repeated itself in broken film in her head. The locked door, the laugh, the note. She didn't tell the nurses. She didn't tell the social worker. She kept her face steady for Eli and said things like, "You'll be dancing by homecoming," just to hear what her voice sounded like when it was pretending to be a future. At home, she scrubbed the tile until the grout was a confession. She laundered the sheets twice. She couldn't wear the coin necklace. She placed it on the dresser, a small moon she didn't deserve. On Friday, Maya kissed Eli's forehead before the swallowed him. She sat in the waiting room with a coffee she didn't drink. Hours folded into themselves. A woman in scrubs with kind eyes said words that will always feel like sunlight. It went well. Maya cried in the kind of silence that makes a noise anyway. She slept in the chair by Eli's bed for 2 nights, waking to his soft sounds, his breath more sure. She smiled for him and he smiled back, grown brave on borrowed courage. When she returned to the apartment to shower and bring him his favorite hoodie, a man was sitting on her couch, talking quietly with Eli. It was him. He stood as if jolted and smoothed a hand down his tie, an unnecessary movement that betrayed nerves. He didn't belong in her small living room with its thrifted table and bowl of half-ripe pears. He belonged to high ceilings and hush, to rooms that never knew dust. "How?" she began, bewilderment scraping her throat. "I'm Asher," he said, and the name fit him. "I had to find you." Asher Langford explained on the porch while early evening leaned gold against the stucco. He spoke with care like words could bruise. "I asked the host for security footage," he said. "He wasn't pleased, but I have leverage. I was worried. You left before dawn and my driver said you were unsteady." Maya's stomach twisted. "You had no right," she said, because fury was safer than gratitude, safer than the relief rising like a tide. "You're right," he admitted. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you. We talked and he exhaled. You reminded me what it feels like to choose decency when no one is watching. And then I saw, enough to know something was wrong." He didn't say the word. She didn't either. It lived between them, a third presence. "I'm sorry," he said, a simple sentence without gilding. "I'm sorry I didn't give you a way to reach me. I'm sorry I let you walk back into a world that hurts people like it's a sport." Maya folded her arms to keep from shaking. "I should have told someone. The police. A doctor." "We still can," Asher said. "If you want. We can get you examined by someone trained. We can call a lawyer. None of this will be easy. But you won't be alone." No one had said those last words to her in a very long time. She stared at him. He wasn't the party's gleam now. He was a man who had practiced being careful and might be learning how to be brave. Inside, Eli called her name and she went because she always would. When she returned, Asher was still there, hands in pockets, gaze on the small, stubborn strip of potted basil by the steps. "I brought something for him," he said, nodding toward a bag. "Noise-canceling headphones for the hospital. And a switch. Games. Distraction can be medicine." "You can't," she began, meaning you can't buy absolution, you can't fix everything, you can't make me trust you. He lifted a hand. I know. I also know that care sometimes looks like practical things. The word sat with her. Okay, she said finally, and the syllable felt like unlocking a window. Over the next week he returned. He drove her to the clinic for a trauma-informed exam and waited in the car because she asked him to. He found a therapist whose office faced the bay and paid the fee without announcing it. He learned Eli's favorite pizza order and a dozen terrible jokes. He told her things he didn't have to, that his father had loved appearances more than people, that his last relationship ended because he had built his life like a fortress and called it a home. They took small walks at dusk. They didn't touch much, not yet. Sometimes his hand hovered, then remembered itself and fell. Maya slept better. Not well, not always, but better. Healing is boring, someone once said, monotony shored up by small victories. For Maya it was both, ordinary days made holy by progress. She watched color return to Eli's cheeks. She learned to cook chicken with herbs and patience. She returned to the bakery part-time, easing back into the rhythm of need, rise, proof, the quiet miracle of flour becoming bread. Asher moved in the edges, present without engulfing. He got her a new apartment, 2 bedrooms, sunlight that found the floor and lingered, by paying a year's rent in advance and signing the lease in her name. I'm not rescuing you, he said, anticipating the backlash in her eyes. I'm making room for you to rescue yourself. They argued once, a sharp, bright moment that ended with both of them smiling in disbelief at their own stubbornness. She had snapped when he tried to order for her at a cafe. He had apologized, quick, sincere, and never did it again. The therapist, Dr. Calder, gave Maya language for things she had accepted as weather. Hypervigilance. Somatic memory. Consent not as a yes but as a continuum. In one session, Maya described the first night on the island. The couch, the bed, the way safety had felt like being handed back something you didn't realize you'd lost. That matters, Dr. Calder said. Your body remembers both harm and care. Asher told Maya about his company without numbers, what it did for people, not what it did for the market. He had made his first millions building software that organized chaos for hospitals. He had made too many more investing in things that made the world marginally better and the very rich obscenely richer. It's a crooked system, he said once, eyes on the water. I try to lean my weight toward the side that makes it less cruel. One night, after Eli fell asleep mid-level of a game, Asher and Maya sat on the balcony. The city hummed. He said, "May I hold your hand?" like a man asking to borrow a book. She looked at his hand, at the tendons like careful lines. Yes, she said, the word soft as the inside of a wrist. They sat like that, 2 people learning how to be a noun that had always scared them. When he left, he didn't kiss her. She closed the door and leaned against it, surprised by the ache that wasn't panic. The next evening he brought her a dress. Not white, blue, the shade of evening just before the first star. There's a fundraiser at the Marine Science Center, he said. Whales and microscopes. Nerd heaven. Would you like to go with me? Maya smoothed the fabric, felt it whisper against her skin. Yes, she said again, finding she liked the shape it made in her mouth. Maya filed a report. It was not cinematic. There was fluorescent lighting and a detective who tried to be kind and a stack of forms that asked her to turn a night into boxes. The exam results would be evidence. The footage Asher had pulled now moved through official hands. Consent, she learned, had to be proved with absence. Lack of it had to be stitched together from bruises and bad notes. Still she did it. Not for vengeance, not primarily, but because some part of her refused to let the night remain merely a rumor in a rich man's life. Asher kept a careful distance while offering a ferocious competence. He knew lawyers who knew other lawyers. He set them in motion and then stopped because this was not his story to steer. When Maya faltered, when a letter arrived from the estate's legal team implying she had misunderstood a private arrangement, Asher's jaw went hard, and Maya watched him work to put the anger somewhere it wouldn't spill on her. Sienna called twice. Maya declined the calls. On the third she answered. The silence on the line was abraded by guilt. I didn't know, Sienna said. I swear I didn't know. I believe you, Maya said, and it was true, and it didn't absolve either of them. Are you okay? I'm getting there. I can't do this anymore, Sienna said, voice small. Not like this. Not if this is the cost. Maya stared at the city from her balcony, at the neon that made everything look better than it was. Then don't, she said. You're allowed to change. The case crawled. The man, now with a name that felt like a bruise when Maya said it, retained counsel who wore gray suits like armor. The party host insisted everything was consensual. The security footage showed otherwise, not with lurid clarity but with unmistakable refusal. Maya shaking her head, the hand at the door, the lock. Would be a fight. Many fights are. Through it, Maya and Asher built something that looked like a life. He kissed her for the first time after they left the aquarium gala, under a mural of a coral reef. He asked and she said yes, and the kiss was careful, then warmer, then a soft astonishment. Her body did not flinch. Relief took a seat between her ribs and decided to stay. Okay, he murmured. Okay, she said, smiling against his mouth, surprised at the vastness that could live inside a small word. Spring in Miami is a rumor. Winter learns to be gracious and then it's gone. On a morning rinsed clean by last night's rain, Asher drove Maya and Eli to a house that pretended not to be a mansion by calling itself a home. The driveway was lined with jacaranda trees, their blossoms like little purple daydreams. I know, Maya said dryly. Subtle. It belonged to a jazz pianist, Asher said, unoffended. You can hear the acoustics when the house breathes. Inside, windows framed the bay like a painting that had never learned restraint. There was a kitchen that begged to be fed in and a library with a ladder that made Eli gasp. Upstairs, a room with a small balcony overlooked the water. Asher opened the French doors and the day stepped in with them. I'm not asking you to move in, he said, and then he dropped to one knee, which contradicted him immediately. I'm asking you to marry me. In your time. As your whole self. Not because I helped, not because you need me, not because I'm trying to fix what can't be fixed. Because I am in love with you, and I want to build a life where the worst thing that ever happened to you is not the most interesting thing about you. Maya stared at him, at the ring, oval diamond, simple band, the kind of elegance that refused to shout. Behind Asher, Eli stood in the doorway, trying to look nonchalant and failing spectacularly. He gave 2 thumbs up like a child at a little league game. Maya laughed, a sound that loosened the last tight knots inside her. Yes, she said, and then, because she had learned the pleasure of abundance, yes, yes. Asher stood and she fell into him, the kiss not careful now but still tender, the kind of kiss that believed in calendars and grocery lists and the siren that would wail down the street and the way they would fold into each other at midnight because the world had been loud and they could be quiet together. Later, when the sun lay down on the water and turned it to gold, Maya sat on the balcony and held the old coin necklace in one hand and the ring in the other. She had not worn the coin since the second party. She lifted it now and fastened it around her neck, reclaiming it for herself. You don't have to wear that, Asher said, coming to stand behind her, hands gentle at her shoulders. I want to, she said. It's mine again. They married a year to the day after Eli's surgery, in a garden that smelled like citrus and second chances. The guest list was small by Billionaire standards and perfect by Maya's. Eli in a slate suit, Dr. Calder, the surgeon, the nurse with kind eyes, the bakery crew who cried freely, and Sienna, who arrived late, hair pulled back, wearing a dress that did not advertise anything except the decision to begin. She hugged Maya hard. I started a concierge styling business, she said, tearful and proud. Turns out I like making women feel like themselves. I'm glad, Maya said, and meant it, and the past did not evaporate but it got out of the way. The legal case had moved like a stubborn river. Discovery had been ugly, strategy uglier. But there had been victories. A judge who allowed the footage, a DA who treated Maya as a person not a spectacle. The man pled to avoid trial. It wasn't everything. It was something. Maya chose not to watch the sentencing. She and Asher walked on the beach instead. He carried her shoes. She let the water erase their footprints and chose to believe in that kind of ephemeral grace. In their home, music learned how to live in walls again. On Sunday mornings, Eli made pancakes and faked a British accent for no reason at all. Maya planted herbs on the balcony and took to reading cookbooks like novels. She returned to school 1 class at a time, then 2, then more, because the future had room now and she intended to fill it. Asher learned to exist in a kitchen without rearranging every drawer. It was slow work, but he applied himself. He continued to be inconveniently generous and meticulously respectful. They argued sometimes and learned to return to the table before the food got cold. On a night salty with summer, they threw a small party, a kind one. The theme was not white, it was color. Friends filled the house. Laughter caught on the ceiling and stayed there. Maya wore a dress the soft green of new leaves and gold hoops that caught the light. She looked like herself, which is to say, like a miracle that had stopped apologizing. As the night thinned, Asher found her on the balcony. Dance with me, he said, because he had learned that love is a series of questions you're delighted to keep asking. They moved slowly, the music inside audible but not insistent. His hand at her back felt like a promise kept daily. She rested her chin on his shoulder and watched Eli through the doorway, grinning over a board game, alive in the ordinary way that is the most extraordinary victory any of us get. Maya thought of the first island, the rooms, the rules, the coin she had taken off, and then of this house, this man, this boy becoming tall, this life. She thought of a truth that had taken the long way home, that dignity could be lost and found, that safety could be taught to return, that love, at its best, was not a rescue but a renovation. Walls widened, doors added, a roof that held in every season. She closed her eyes and let Asher lead, not because she couldn't, but because sometimes the sweetest thing is letting yourself be held by a future you chose.